A ruthless display against an error-prone, despairing club which recently sacked its manager. Guess which one Reading FC were? Yep, a 3-1 win over Huddersfield kept the Royals third in the Championship. It is a strange, exciting new world. It's Paul Ince's and we're living in it. Welcome to the Tilehurst podcast, episode 310. I'm your host, Marc, as per usual. Join me this week. His first appearance on the podcast this season, but certainly not his first rodeo, and certainly not his first hyped, enjoyable start to the season, and certainly unexpected, enjoyable start to the season. It is Alan Westy. How's it going, mate?
Yeah, good, man. I've had a bit of I've had a bit of a slow start to the season. Our first one this year, 14th season overall, so we're still plodding along. The veteran of the podcast and veteran of Reading FC podcasting, full stop, I think.
Absolutely, and that means that you've seen it all before, and you won't get too overexcited by one win or here or there. But there's certainly plenty to get excited about this season. We'll see how it all ends up. But given our expectations, I think we're just enjoying the ride, aren't we? We'll go into the recap in a little bit. We'll also have Mailbag coming up a little bit later, and then we'll have the big match preview with some Newsbites thrown in for good measure. Right then. Let's go into the recap of the Huddersfield game with, as always, a thank you to our sponsors, ZCZ Films, and our Patreon subscribers, always helping us with a little virtual tip jar and that cash. At the moment, we are putting it to good use and something that you'll probably see. Well, actually, we don't know when you'll see it because of certain things up in the air beyond our control, but certainly making some movements with the blog and the podcast at the moment. With all that said and done, let's get into the recap then and discuss the 3-1 win over Huddersfield.
Come rain or shine, it's time to relive the latest match action with the recap.
This podcast is sponsored by ZCZ Films, Reading's oldest ultras.
Right then, it was a 3-1 win over Huddersfield Westy, a game that, well, they've come in with a new manager. They've made changes, got to the playoffs last year, but just haven't got it going this season. They're still in the relegation zone. As a result of this game, Reading still in the playoffs, third in the table, and only 3 points off the top, which is certainly not a sentence I thought I'd be saying in October, but I'll absolutely take it. And you know why did Reading manage to get over the line? I kind of said with the introduction, we used to be in the other team, aren't we, in the last few years, being that error-prone team, a bit despairing with a new manager, not really sure where we're going. But this time we have a perfectly good system with this 3-5-2. We're still going along with it. It's still working really well, isn't it? Hoylett and Nesta Guinness-Walker came back as the wing-backs, Sam Hutchinson into midfield, and it all just worked.
Do you know what? That's my friend come over. He sort of sees Reading maybe 2 or 3 times a year. He moved from Australia and he's back now. So he does pop to the odd game. And he said, it's been a long time since I've seen Reading have a home win. And I said, well, we must be due one today. But I didn't expect it to be as comfortable as it was. It was very reminiscent of old times when Copper was here and you used to turn up at home and just expect a home win. And it's not been like that for a long, long time. I've never seen... Well, I haven't for some years, anyhow, seen a more comfortable home win for Reading. They didn't really get out of first gear. The worry was, obviously, with new manager Huddersfield, might have a new manager bounce. He comes in, bangs a few heads, and then you get a different performance that you're not expecting. But they were rightly in the bottom 3. I thought they were poor. But like I say, Reading, it's nice to see a Reading side, turn up to a game and decimate it in the first half, really. As soon as Reading scored, there was no doubt in my mind they was going to win that game. It never looked like there was going to be any other outcome. Again, it was nice to look at the bench. I thought, look at the bench to see strong professional footballers sat on the bench thinking, actually, if we need to make changes, we can. It's great to have Andy Carroll back in the side. He offers you something that I don't think anyone else does in this division. I mean, just his headers. When he wins a header, he don't just win a header. He'll pass it 35 yards with his head. It's unbelievable to watch. You can see why he's played at the top level. And now, looking at Reading's side, you've got places that are not up for grabs, but they're certainly getting competition for them. You just mentioned the 2 fullbacks there. I thought they were both excellent on the day. And I think, to be fair to Junior Hoylett, for an experienced professional like he is, he's sort of been unsung hero, really. He does a lot of 7, 8 out of 10 performances, and I thought he was very good on the day. And same as Nesta Walker. I mean, Guinness-Walker, sorry. I thought he was very, very good. I was a little bit sceptical of him when I first see the first couple of games. A Blackpool away I watched, and I thought he looked like a rabbit in the headlights. but he's sort of waited his chance. It's been an injury. He's got back in the side and he didn't let anyone down. And I think if you've got players like that in your squad, they're only going to stand you in good stead for the rest of the season. And Hutchinson, again, I haven't seen a lot of him before he started playing for Reading, but what a good professional footballer he is. I think Sheffield Wednesday probably got rid of him due to his injuries, but I'm sure he would walk into that team any day of the week. And when you see him play for Reading, he's just a calm head, a good footballer. Like I say, he's steady Eddie, and you could do with 2 or 3 of them in your side, because it's great for the players that can get some out of your Inces and your Jowls and players like that, because you've got that strong base. And I didn't think we had that last year, but this year we've got it all over the pitch, which is great for the youngsters and the 2 local lads at the back as well. Great to see McIntyre score again. It's always good to have local lads in your side, and at the moment everyone's plodding along just nicely.
Yeah, absolutely, that isn't it. I've made a note of the subs as well, as you mentioned at the start there, saying Forner, Lou, Mate coming off the bench is just really strong options for any team at this level, isn't it? With Ajario as well as an option. And I think I was trying to work out before we recorded as to what exactly it is that is, delivering for Reading at the moment. And I think it is that defensive base, isn't it? That 3 at the back has given us so much more solidity. And you could see when we switched to 4 against Sunderland that it all just collapsed, which kind of worries me as to Paul Ince, whether he thinks he's going to do that. But I don't see any reason why we would for the rest of the season unless something drastically changes. And I think it is Paul Ince's management that deserves a massive bit of credit as well, because he obviously goes out. You know what he is like as a person. We've all known what Paul Ince is like. If you've watched football in this country for the last decades, he's always been there as a pundit or manager or player or whatever. And I just get the sense that he goes out and tells the players not to do too much. He doesn't go out there with these extravagant plans and instructions as to do X, Y, Z that's going to confuse them or be above them or anything. He just goes out and says, "You're a good footballer. These are your best attributes." Someone like Sam Hutchinson saying, you're a good leader, good on the ball, you're good positioning wise. Just do that. He doesn't go out and say, you have to do absolutely everything. And maybe that's something that we've seen managers like Paunovic who's kind of overextended his players or tried to get them doing too much, and then that can have a backfiring effect. And I think Ince, he does. I think that's just how he manages, isn't it? He just goes out and says, get the basics right. And as a championship team, doing the basics right with talent in the squad, like you just said, players like Cowell, Ince, and everyone, and that will get you over the line. Maybe not 3 times or 4 times out of 5, but certainly over the course of a season, you'll win more than you lose.
Yeah, it's a grind, isn't it? The Championship, we all know that. If you've got a bit of quality up front, you've got half a chance. It was nice to see 2 players up front, because you don't see that too often nowadays. I'm an advocate for it in the Championship, because I've said on many seasons that there are very few teams are going to catch you on the break if you're shrewd about it. So I think you can play 2 up front if you've got a strong base, and I think Reading have at the moment. I think most managers sort of manage in their graven image. I mean, I'm old enough to have seen Ince play pretty much his whole career at Manchester United, then when he went to Italy and obviously for England. And Reading played like Paul Ince played. It's all very much, I wouldn't say it was like technically brilliant all the time, but what it is it's 100%, and it's just do the right things. And I think he's having his son in the team as well helps him push that agenda, because if you watch Ince, technically very good footballer, scores the odd free kick, which is again a bonus in this league, but also he pushes the rest of the side to be more aggressive and to be more in your face and to give 100%. And I think that's really, really helped both parties sort of settle into the club. I was very sceptical getting Ince coming in the first place. Tom, that is. I thought he was a very one-footed player, but he's proved me wrong. I think he's been an excellent addition, and he drives the rest of that side. And with his dad's input, I think they're just doing, like I say, doing the basics right. And we've got a big, strong side now. We always say in the Championship, make sure you're big and strong and powerful. And we've got all that in abundance. And you've seen it from, I don't know how many corners we scored from last year, but it wasn't many. But this year, we look for it. Every time we get a free kick anywhere near that box or a corner, we've got a lot of big players winning headers and hitting targets. And I think as long as that continues, like I say, if you can win 3 games out of 5, then in the Championship, you'll be there or thereabouts. Yeah,
that's 4 set-piece goals I think we've scored now in 11 games. So if you kind of bring that out, we score over 10 set-piece goals a season. That's a real boon, isn't it? Because some teams manage about 1 or 2 if they're not so good at it.
Also, that there's goals all over the pitch at the minute. It's not like we're relying on one player to get the goals. Gerald didn't have a particularly good game on Saturday. didn't really look like scoring. And normally he's our sort of go-to guy for the goals. And I don't think we had a striker score until Mayte come on. There wasn't, Carroll didn't really have a shot on goal. But we got goals by hook or by crook. And like I say, the last goal that Mayte sort of bundled in, it was typical Mayte goal, bull in the china shop, too powerful for him. They made a mistake. He's got a tap in. And I think if he scores 2 more goals, he's our highest goal scorer in the Championship. I think I read the other day, which I was quite surprised about that stat. And if he'd have been fit, I'm sure he'd have busted that record a long time ago.
Yeah, I've not seen that one myself, actually, but it sounds perfectly plausible because I suppose our best strikers over the years have left the Championship pretty soon, haven't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's about 8 players have scored this season. Zhao's the only one with 3. Ince and McIntyre now both have 2. Hoylett, Sarr, Longthorne and Mayte all have 1. And there's still more to come. Players like Carroll, Hendrick, can all imagine those will score. Majaria as well later in the season, Holmes. So yeah, I had a look through the stats and thought, just to, again, try and work out what this team is doing, week in, week out as kind of builds up over the season to see how our stats are looking. And we're having the fewest shots per game, 2nd lowest possession, 5th most aerial duels won, and we're the 5th most fouled team as well. Our defensive stats are all kind of mid-table. There's no real standouts either way, in good or bad in defensive. And I think being mid-table, you look at our goals conceded, I'm pretty sure that's mid-table as well. But it's interesting with the, we don't score loads of goals. We've had a few, I think it's the 2nd time now we've scored 3 in a game, and that's kind of been it really for big performances. But
yeah, it was clinical on Saturday. We didn't have many shots at goal, but when we did, maybe we had our own goal. Obviously, one kicked against the back of the goalkeeper's net, but it was because they was put in all sorts of trouble. Because it was a good ball forward for McIntyre. Hendrick, who had probably his best game I've seen him have for a while. He looked a threat, and like I say, we just caused panic in the defence, don't we? And with Carroll, you're always going to do that anyway because they're super concerned about him winning headers, which he does 9 times out of 10. It's been great. I think even when you remember going back a few years when Kermorgan was up front for Reading when we got to the playoffs, even then we didn't have a lot of shots on goal, just we were clinical. And I think if you can carry that on, then obviously you're gonna be there or thereabouts at the end of the season.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it is also, or the last thing I'll say on the recap is it's always nice to do this against a team who've beaten you in the playoff final. Sid, I always have that sort of moment. Beating Swansea or beating, if you ever play Wolves all again, beating those sort of teams is always nice, isn't it?
Well, it's nice that the fact that for once it seems that we're looking at the division as a whole. I think it looks very poor. Do you know what I mean? Normally that you look at sides and you think, well, actually they're all right. But this year you're looking at teams, and I watched the whole Luton game as well on Friday, and I thought there's 2 poor sides as well. And you think at least Reading are beating the sides that are below them for a change. Whereas before that's the sort of game Reading would come unstuck in it. You think, well, you got a good result against someone decent, and then you play someone at the bottom and they turn us over or they get a draw or sort of make us look like we're not as good as we are. So this year it looks like we're knocking them teams on the head, which is great. But the challenge comes obviously this week when we've got 2 teams that are in the top 6. Now that'll be the test for Reading. But like I said, we've got a strong side and we've got a strong bench and we've got strong options up front. So there's no reason why we can't get some points out of these next 2 matches, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be talking about those Norwich and QPR games in a little bit. Let's go and hear from Paul Ince now as he spoke after the Huddersfield game, and then we'll be hearing from you guys in the mailbag.
Because the back 3, back 5, when you put it, Junior was outstanding. Nesta's just come back in for outstanding. And then we make a silly mistake and it costs us a goal. Is that being me finicky? No, because I think it's important that, as much as we've scored 3 goals at home, I want my defenders to get the glory and have a clean sheet. So we learn from that. We can't afford to make silly mistakes like that because against a better team you get punished. But what we've got now, it was a great result for us. And the fact that we knew we got Norwich here, QPR away, tough games coming up. So it was important for the lads today to pick up 3 points.
For all the latest Reading news, analysis and opinion, visit the website at thetilehurstend.com.
Right then, Mike Stagg kicks us off saying, do you think the stigma of Paul Ince being a bad manager is going to go away anytime soon, or was his 8 years out of the game going to follow him everywhere? I think it's the stigma for Paul Ince is kind of what we were discussing earlier. Maybe this will come back into fashion, but that he's not a massively technical manager, is he? He's not someone who's going to play beautiful football, which is ultimately the thing that, makes managers more heard of these days than anything else. So I think that's probably the thing that's going to hold him back from being a manager that's seen as, I don't think, unless something drastic will have to happen in the next couple of years, presuming Reading kind of plod along in the Championship, being decent under Paul Ince, and the next couple of years. That's a very fanciful notion. I know we're only in October, but it's a very early days still. But I don't think I'll ever see Paul Ince as someone that I'm worried about being poached by, a Wolves who are looking for a manager, or if a team like Watford were hunting around. I don't think Paul Ince would be interesting to them, and I think that's because 8 years out of the game, but also his style and everything is a bit of a 20th century style in a way, isn't it? And that's fine. I'm very happy with that as our manager, but I don't think it'll attract other clubs.
No, unless he had a foreign sounding surname, like, I don't know, Paulo Santos or something like that, then he might get taken away. I think it's very much a fashionable thing now to have a foreign manager with these expansive ideas. But you've seen down the years with people like Neil Warnock that you don't have to be too clever to get your side out of the Championship or at the top of it. You just need to make them organised, strong, and obviously score goals and sort of grind games out, because that's what it is. I think you look at clubs like Watford, change a manager every 2 weeks. It's ridiculous the situation some clubs get them into. But talking about points and sort of the legacy that comes with him as a manager, I think sometimes you look at situations where you step into them when he really had nothing to lose when he came here. If they'd have got relegated, they was heading that way anyway. We managed to pull our way out of it, but sometimes it's just right place, right time. And I think all the sort of clogs have sort of all clipped in together. And it's just one of those times where it just happens. You have these situations where managers, like going back years ago when McGee was here, it's sort of, he come in, we were struggling, he's a player manager, it all clicked in, the youth players sort of all come through at the same time. They had a few decent additions that they picked up out of nowhere, and it all just ran for a season and a half, 18 months, 2 years, and they had success out of it. And when he went anywhere else, your Leicesters, your Wolves, and then when he went back to Scotland, never really happened for him again. And I think maybe this is just Paul Ince's time. It's just he's fell into a club that was right for him to come into. We've obviously not backed him financially, but you've got to say that the players that Reading have got in, although he's not having to build for the future, he's not been given the remit saying, look, we need to build for the future, you need to concentrate on the youth. It's basically, let's get players in the back end of their careers, around about 30, steady, good professionals. Let's try and do something with them, and it's just working. And I think legacies and when you look back at how managers are and what they've done before, I don't think anyone really cares. He might go on to have 3 amazing seasons here, and everyone look at him like he was one of the best friend managers of all time. I think it's just his time to do well. And I just hope that, because there's going to be a time this season, because you know what the Championship's like, where we have maybe 3 or 4 bad results and everyone starts going, well, maybe you need to start looking around for another manager, like they do, push the panic button. I think as long as we all stay feeling that actually this is a season where we was all expecting to be down the bottom end of the table and we're not, just stick behind them, because like I say, the squad's there to more than capably stay in this division. And if we get anything other than that, if we end up in the playoffs or even in the 1 or 2 positions, then I think we can all say, actually, well done, Paul Ince, and not just Paul Ince, the backroom staff and everyone that's been involved with Reading FC, because I think we all feared the worst this year, and it's been a beautiful and lovely surprise to see us where we are.
Absolutely. I think earlier we were talking about Tom Ince having his dad has helped him. I think actually Paul Ince having Tom at the club is a massive confidence boost to him, that he's got the authority, or he feels like he knows he's got a player who can set the example and set the tone. Does a lot for him, because he is a big, tone and vibe and all that sort of stuff. He's a big manager for that. I think that ultimately going forward.
Yeah, he's very straight talking as well, and he doesn't pull no punches. If he thinks it's been poor, he'll say it as poor. And I think I like that anyway. I like the fact that he doesn't try and flim flam you with nonsense. He just says how it is, and either you do it or you don't do it. But it seems everyone's bought into that. Whereas I suppose on occasions that could be difficult for some players. Maybe they don't like it so much, but it seems that he's got a squad together that like the straight talking, and they've reacted every time they've had bad results this year. And there are others that take other beatings places. They've reacted in the right way. So it looks like everything's going for them at the moment, and long may that continue.
Yeah, you gave me massive flashbacks to Nigel Adkins then, as you said the word flim flam. That really brought that back.
They use Carl Salmon Atkins, exactly. That's the sort of manager I'm talking about. Absolute nonsense comes out of their mouth. They try and bamboozle you with tactics and what should have happened, what didn't happen. We can all see what's happening, and Ince just says it straight, and I think people appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I think we're all in a good place with Paul Ince at the moment, and I think so. So we'll move on then with Sam. Sam Richards saying, if we can continue to use 2 up front, who is your preferred selection when everyone is fit? The options, obviously, Carroll, Ince, Long, Zhao, Meite, Aziz is on his way back now from injury. And then also there's a midfield 3 of Hutchinson, Hendrick and Ince carry enough attacking prowess. Well, I think for the 2 up front, it's interesting that Lucas Zhao is becoming a little bit of a spare man. At the moment, he's not had the best few weeks, has he really? But he's still our top scorer this season. I don't think anyone's going to doubt that Zhao will have good games in the future, but who you pair him with? I mean, how did you find Carroll and Zhao on the weekend? I think that the temptation to play Carroll and Long up front next to each other must be quite high, mustn't it? But Carroll and Zhao as a duo, I think maybe it can work on the basis that defenders, if you're playing against a team with two central defenders, they can't double up on either of them. And as soon as you give either Carroll or Zhao just a bit of space, then they know how to exploit it, don't they?
Yeah, I think for Zhao playing with Carroll, I think it's going to be a learning experience for him, because in many ways, when Zhao plays up front with anyone else, we look to hit him. He's not been that great recently of holding up the ball. I think he needs to learn now that if Carroll's there with him, let Carroll go and win the ball and get on the run. Get running, because really Carroll wants to be able to hit you with the first header. And once he gets that in his mind, that actually let's not try and win the ball, let's let Carroll win it, and I'll get on the run and sort of get on that last man. I think it can work really well. I think them two are both very good players on their day. Like I say, you know what Carroll's all about, so you need him to be winning the ball. But I think realistically, if you look at it, I think if you've taken them 4 players, Long's Carroll's replacement and Meite's Zhao's replacement, I don't think there's any other combination you can play, because if you start playing Carroll and Long, your front 2 are paceless and they're both going to look to try and hold the ball up. And if you play Meite and Zhao, same thing, that they don't hold the ball particularly well. They want to get on the run. So I think that one's replacement for the other. So Carroll's Long's replacement and vice versa. And I think Meite's Zhao's replacement, vice versa. Zhao Carroll hasn't really worked down the years Meite hasn't really worked down the years when you think it should have done. So I think actually it's one of Long or Carroll, and it's either one of Meite and Zhao. So I think that's the way it's going to have to be played out, which is nice to have this situation where we've got 4 strikers where we can debate it, because that's not happened for many a moon since Lita, Doyle, Kitson and that were here.
No, and I think Ince and Aziz are more midfield options, really, aren't they? Aziz is going to be a kind of alternative winger player in this system, and Ince can play anywhere really. If he plays off the striker, then great. But I think with Long, if it was Long of 5-10 years ago, you could easily put him up front with Carroll, because he would be the man to chase off the loose balls, but maybe not anymore.
No, he's not got that burst of pace anymore. I mean, I think the last game he played at home, I can't remember who it was against now, but he got the ball out from under his feet, and knowing Long of the past, you thought he's going to knock this past him and run, and he thought about it, and then he passed the ball inside, because he knows, as well as we all do, that he hasn't got that sort of electric pace over 15, 20 yards like he used to have. But he is very good at holding the ball, and he does bring other players into play, and I think he's been an excellent addition for us. But again, Long's goals have dried up down the years, and I think you look at it now as a hold-up player, and that's all he really is. He understands that, I think, and he's doing it really well. But if you're playing Carroll and Long up front, Long's not going to be that player who can get onto the end of these headers. So I don't think they would work as a pair. I might be wrong, but I don't think they would.
Yeah, the next question then. Benjamin Vickers saying, with the Yeardom injury, do we hire Michael Hector to cover the back 3 at least until January? And David Mills saying, would any of us consider letting go of Dan and Liam Moore by mutual consent? If so, what would it take or cost to send them on their way? Firstly, I'll update you on the kind of injury situation with the defence, because I know that Baba Rahman's out for a month with a hamstring injury. Apparently, he's back from the Ghanaian internationals with a bit of hamstring problem, Paul is saying. And Yeardom, I think they're saying they get the diagnosis on the weekend after the game, but we haven't had an update on that yet. Liam Moore and Scott Dan are still out. Naby Sarr is as well. So, I mean, what do we do about this? I guess you've got still Holmes, Hutchinson and McIntyre is a pretty straightforward back 3. You can go with that pretty straight away. with Yiadom being out, I don't know if it's best to kind of dip into the market for another player. We've got 2 players now, haven't we, on till January? I think Carroll's still January and that, and Benge's still January as well. So I think you probably just have to kind of live with it for a little bit.
I think that's definitely what they're going to have to do, is live with it. Hutchinson's probably just drop into the back 3 on Tuesday and Saturday, as long as everyone stays fit. Yiadom's a big loss because, again, I think he's been excellent for the last 3 or 4 seasons, not just this. He gives you some extra. He's got that pace and he will get forward. It does make your back 3 a bit slow on Tuesday night, which is a concern. But yeah, I'd love to have Hector back here. I think he's still at a decent age. He was a good footballer and he can cover a couple of positions a bit like Hutchinson. So he would be handy to have. But from what I understand, they can't do it for reasons that are beyond our control. Hopefully, like I said, he's probably seen enough of him. He's been there 3 or 4 weeks. They know what he's all about. And Hector's got to be a better option than Dan. I was shocked that they re-signed him. You knew he was injured when you got him. So why get a 35, 36-year-old centre-back for another season when he was already injured? A ridiculous decision, and that's sort of bit him in the arse now as well.
Are we going to see Dan and or Liam Moore in a Reading shirt again?
I don't think so. You might see Dan, but how fit's he going to be? Even if he comes back, he's going to have the World Cup to recover by looks of things. If he comes back after that, he's had no pre-season. I think it was a wasted signing. But you live and you learn, don't you? If he'd have got himself back fit, he's a good player. But again, I think we've got enough players at the back with no pace that Dan was not one that you really should have re-signed. But saying that, we didn't have these players at the time, did we? So in many ways, they probably thought, well, let's get Dan in. That's one recruit for definite. But their recruitment's been excellent since, and you don't really need him anymore, do you? And Moore, I think, is finished at Reading. Even if he stepped on the pitch again, I just think that he's burnt his bridges.
Yeah, well, I think with Dan, the only way it kind of makes sense in my head is kind of, when we signed John O'Shea a few years ago, as the basis that he's going to become a coach, basically, and has all that basically still going on even when he's injured, and he can mentor players and be useful around the dressing room. That's the only way I can see it working, but I can't guarantee that is happening, basically. And yeah, Liam Moore, I think. I'd be surprised if we can find a situation where we do kind of pay him off, because obviously the relationship between the club and the player is so poor. So I just can't imagine them sitting around a table and hammering something out that's maybe not as financially beneficial to Liam Moore as, keeping him in the reserves or treating him while he's injured. So we'll see how that goes. But
I don't think there's any way that Moore will not see out his contract now. I just think that he's on a very good contract. He's not going to get anywhere else, and he's already injured anyway. So why would he, unless Reading are going to throw stupid money to get rid of him, which they're not, because they probably can't, he's going to see out his contract, and that's just the way it is. And hopefully it won't make the blindest bit of difference to us. I mean, I was talking to my mate this week, and we were saying, you know what, for Reading next year, looking forward a little bit, if by some miracle they end up in the Premier League, they basically have a load of players that are out of contract again, so they can absolutely redefine their whole club. It's not like they're going to be stuck with a load of players that want massive contracts that they can't get rid of. They're in a strong position all of a sudden that if the best did happen, then you could probably go and get 9-10 players and sort of discard all the players that have got you up. Because let's face it, there's no way them players will be able to cope in the Premier League, just because most of them are paceless and getting towards being over the hill. So if something did happen like that, we are in a very strong position as a club. If we were to go in the Premier League, we'd probably get relegated, but it would set us up then for the next 5 years or so, where we could really be one of those sides, a bit like Norwich, that sort of go up and down a bit. I get a bit ahead of myself because we haven't gone up yet, but do you know what I mean? We are.
We'd be Nottingham Forest, wouldn't we?
Well, we would. We were in a strong position because we haven't got no sort of hangers on, and it would be great for Reading if it was the best was to happen. But regardless of that, if we can get out of this situation we're in next year, and we have a good season this year, then again we're in a stronger position, much stronger position than we thought we might be. I mean, I think all of us thought we actually might be in League One, and we probably should have been last year. So. Let's think good times are ahead, Mark. Eh?
Oh yeah, definitely. I have to hold myself back because I do enjoy kind of mocking a team like, not mocking, that's too harsh, but a team like Nottingham Forest who do come up and sign 25 players, and it's all a bit ridiculous. I do enjoy the kind of memes and everything, the jokes you see about them, but at the same point, I'm very well aware that if Reading happened to go up this season, we would sign a minimum 20 players over the summer, of varying degrees of class.
We'd have to have any chance of staying in the division. We'd have to, but we can because we've got no baggage really, have we now? Because it's all been sort of stripped away.
Yeah, definitely. The final couple of questions then, Matteo saying, when do you think we'll hit 45 points? Alice is saying, if you had to say where we're going to be come the World Cup break, where would it? It would be kind of playoffs. How many games have we got left of the World Cup break? I'll top this up while you tell me when we're going to hit 45 points.
Well, it'd be nice to do it on sort of what we're looking at. 45. If we'd done it on 24 games, 25 games, we'd be there or thereabouts still, wouldn't we? I think sort of 2 points a game and you're in the top two. So anywhere near that, you'll still be in the playoffs. So if we can do it on a 25th match, I'll be quite pleased with it.
Yeah, definitely. We've actually got a load of games between now and the World Cup break, which our World Cup break is shorter than the Premier League's. It's worth pointing out. We'll be back on the 10th of December. I think it's after the group stage. So when Hoylett and Yedon and Barbara Rahman get knocked out, they'll come straight back to us, which will be good. The World Cup break is in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games time, which is still, I think, in 10 games time, we don't think we'll be on 45 points by then, will we? But I think, yeah, my prediction for where we'll be come the World Cup break is that we'll be probably around 4th or 5th. I don't think we'll necessarily, when we've got games this week against Norwich QPR, it'd be great if we picked up 6 points in them, but I don't think we will. So, yeah, I just think that if we're 4th, 5th, maybe even 6th by then, it's because really we mentioned this earlier, you look at the teams outside the playoffs at the moment. Yeah, there's Watford in 7th, who are obviously going to have their new manager bounce now. They've already started that. Sunderland in 8th with, they've beaten us. They're not a bad team. But then you've got Luton, you've got Wigan, Swansea, Rotherham making up the top 12. It's not so much what are Reading going to do, but who's seriously going to, out of those teams, going to win 8 of the next 10 to come and knock us out?
Yeah, it's like I said earlier that I think the league is looking rather poor this year. Even the Premier League, so I mean, Watford have a slow start with the players they had. You expect them to be banging on the door of the Premier League again, and I'm sure they will have a run at some point where they will make their way into the playoffs and probably push for the 3rd, 2nd place. Sheffield United were standout to me that I see when we played them. They were really good. They were clinical. They had good players all over the pitch. Their bench was strong. So I think they're definitely nailed on going up. And obviously Burnley and Norwich are the other two you've got to look at just because they've come down with Premier League money. But other than that, I mean, looking at the other teams, the also rans, there's nothing for Reading to be scared of. That's for certain, especially with our options at the moment. I don't see anyone sort of going on a run of 10 games and picking up sort of 20, 25 points. You know what I mean? I just don't see that happening. So as long as Reading keep plodding along, there's no reason to believe that they won't finish in the top 6, you'd hope.
Yeah, certainly. I think that, you look at Stoke in 17th, West Brom 21st, Middlesbrough 22nd. These are the teams that probably thought they're going to be doing a lot better. And there's loads of time left. There's 35 games left in this division. But between now and the World Cup break, which is probably a good little marker to think of now, I wouldn't be thinking any further ahead of that if I was in the squad or anything. But yeah, I think there's a very good chance that Reading will be in the playoffs on current form at least. Final question then. Lulu saying, which player is the most caring lover of Reading FC, past or present? Have you got an answer for this?
I did. I wrote my answer. Stuart Lovell. Says it's all in the name.
And I've gone for Ian Hart.
Oh, that is beautiful.
which I'd like to say I thought of instantly, but it took me a good couple of minutes of ruminating over potential puns and players. So yeah, we'll end our mailbag on that, and we'll be back with Newsbites in just a moment.
Keep up to date with all things Reading FC. Follow the Tilehurst End on Facebook and Twitter.
Right, welcome back to the show, and let's do some news bites for you now. We've not had news bites for a couple of weeks to inform you of what's been going on around the other clubs or the other teams of Reading FC. We did have, pre-international break, a chat about the women's team with Pete, who's our reporter for the Tilehurst End. Goes to pretty much all the women's games. So if you want to go in for a more in-depth look at how the women's team are getting on the season, drop back and listen to that. Even after the couple of games this week, it's still relevant and kind of makes sense to listen to. In the last couple of weeks, then Reading FC women's, unfortunately, a couple more defeats on the cards. 2-1 against Brighton in the WSL. There's a really bad offside call against Reading in that. That kind of held them back from getting the opening goal in that one. So real disappointing. They lost 2-1 to a team that's probably going to be there or thereabouts down the table with them this season. And then there was a 2-1 defeat to Tottenham in the Conti Cup, the League Cup, group stage on the weekend. But there was a record attendance at that game at the SCL, so that was really good to see. A lot of fans turning up for that one, and hopefully this Reading team, a couple of narrow defeats, might not get better that quickly after the international break. I'm not going to lie, because they're playing Arsenal at home. That's the Sunday, 16th of October, 6:45 kickoff at the Select Car Leasing. Good chance to get down there. Obviously, Arsenal have a few players who were part of the Euros team in the summer. That's top versus bottom, actually, as well. So definitely get yourself down to that. Reading did beat Chelsea at home last season, so beating Arsenal can't be discounted. They've also got West Ham and then Leicester. That'll be a big game against Leicester later in the month. The under-21s team played Millwall on the 26th of September, so that was their last game. They've actually got Cardiff later today after we're recording, so they're in that player development or professional development league. So this season, because our losing the academy status means we're not in the Premier League anymore. But that was a 2-1 win for them. They're 5th in this development league, playing the likes of Charlton, Ipswich and QPR at the moment. And the under-18s in their league, they beat Watford 2-0 last time out. They've also had wins over Birmingham this month. Their next game will be against QPR. Actually, they've already played that game, but the club haven't updated their website, which is useful. So not too up to date with the under-18, sadly. But I think with the under-18s and the under-21s this season, maybe we probably got a bit more interested in it because it was against the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea they're playing. It made more sense. But maybe being in the professional development league, my point of view on it is that it just kind of eases the pressure on them, and they can kind of just go out and play their games, and it maybe has a bit less relevance to the results and whatever they get. They're playing decent professional clubs and everything. So I think it's all going all right for them and the Reading FC women's team. It's going to be a bit of a struggle this year.
Sorry, Mark. Have you seen any of that Crystal Palace Academy on Channel 4?
No, I have not. Please inform me.
Well, you should, again, if the listeners haven't seen it, I'd give it a watch. So basically what they do is they go through a number of years from sort of under 8s to under 18s, and they sort of focus on 2 or 3 players and how they're developing through the academy system. And it's interesting to see it from the view of any club. It wouldn't make a difference, but it happens to be Crystal Palace. But it's interesting to see the barriers that are in front of these young players and the disappointment and the pressure they're under throughout those sort of 10 years of being in an academy. It's a real eye opener. I mean, I've dealt with youth football before, so you know that the parents in general are going to be a problem. But some of the parents, I mean, the delusion that they've got about their son being a Premier League footballer and the lengths that they're prepared to go to sort of push them to get to that position and the pressure they put them under, it really was. It's really an interesting watch. I think it's got about 6 episodes of it, and again they move from one year to the next. But it's a real good watch. I'm sure you can get it on catch up. If you've got nothing better to do with your time, like I didn't, then give it a watch, because it's a real eye opener, and you can see the difficulty these young players have in being basically the 1%. And there's a lot of good players that get let go, and there's a lot of young players that you see. They show you sort of matches and clips from training and that, and you think, I don't know if he's going to make it, and that they give them another opportunity, and you see them back later when they're a bit older, and you think, well, actually, the coaches were right, or no, they weren't right. But it's an interesting watch. So if you ain't got anything better to do with your time, then please check it out, because it's a real eye opener.
Yeah, it would be interesting to get Reading on something like that. I know the chances of us being on those all or nothing series are obviously pretty low, and not necessarily something you'd always want your club to be involved in. But yeah, it's the academy football side of it is really interesting. I think that, I mean, imagine as a parent as well, and imagine I've always thought if you're a 17-year-old player, you think you're the next big thing or something, then you find yourself on Football Manager, and then you realise that you've got like a 1-star potential or something, and that they just fully don't rate you. I always remember that, there's been Reading players over the years that just haven't been any good on games and then come up and all that sort of stuff. And that is, as a 17-year-old boy, that's the sort of stuff you look at. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing.
Yeah, sorry, Mark. There was another program, a very similar one, where it was about players that got let go from their clubs. I think this guy was playing for, might have been Tottenham, and he'd gone all through the academy, and he got to 18. They said, "No, you're not for us. We don't want you," basically. And his dad was like adamant that he's going to be a professional footballer. And his dad and his mum, they flew him to Portugal right? Flew him out to Portugal to get him a club, and he's currently playing in the Portuguese second division. But he started in the fourth division, but he was way too good for that. And he's sort of got an agent in Portugal, and they managed to get him a professional team, and now he's got a 3-year contract as a professional footballer. So it just goes to show, you know what I mean? At 17, a lot of kids get chucked on a scrap heap, and it must be real difficult for them to understand that after all that coaching, all that training, 17, 18 years old, that hang on, I know Tottenham don't want me, but surely there must be someone out there that would take you. And this guy just wouldn't give up. His dad, more than anything, just would not give up. And he eventually got him a club playing in Portugal. And it's probably not a massive money, but he's being a professional footballer for the next sort of 15 years if he's lucky. And that's what he set out to do. So sort of fair play to him. But there must be a lot of sort of hard luck stories. I mean, I know when I played local football at a reasonably decent level, there was a lot of guys there that when they were younger were at Crystal Palace and sort of they were at Oxford and was at Reading, and they all got released. Maybe because of their attitude, but do you know what I mean? It just goes to show that the turnover of young players is massive, and there's got to be. If you've gone through 10 years of an academy, you've got to be a decent footballer, haven't you? You can't. It's not like you've tricked your way for 10 years. And when you watch this academy, the Crystal Palace one, you can see the pressure that they're under, and it's a real good one.
Yeah, actually reminds me that I think he's one of my old uni housemates. He was on the Yeovil Academy, I think. He used to play with Tyrone Mings. I'm going to have an absolute guess at saying, and he thought he was rubbish. So we'll leave that defamatory mark. Bury that in the podcast where Tyrone doesn't have to go back and answer us. So I think he's done all right, hasn't he? We'll be updating you with the academy and everything over the over the season, everything on the podcast, on the website and everything. I mean, you've kind of just seen live there as I looked at the Reading FC website. It wasn't even updated for the weekend game, which is a bit poor, really. So hopefully we'll hear more from the academy and stuff over the course of the season. Let's get back into the first team now and do big match preview.
Be loud and be proud and back the boys and make some noise. Come on, you Rs!
Shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, ZCZ Films, showing that age is no barrier to being a hula hoop.
It is Norwich at home on Tuesday night on TV for Reading FC. It is an 8:00 kickoff, as per usual, at the Select Car Leasing. It's second place, third, a Norwich team who have won 7 of their last 8. Bit of a tricky start to the season for them. This is a big test, and I think, Westy, I suppose the headline for this for me is I just hope we don't get beat 4-0.
Yeah, I don't think we've got a particularly good record on TV, have we, over the last 2 or 3 seasons? I can't remember any too many standout wins, but it's going to be a tough game. We know that. We know what Norwich are all about. They yo-yo from Premier League Championship. They'll probably go up again this year. I think as a block of 2 games, I mean, if Reading were to get 3 points out of his next 2 games, I think that'd be a great return. Where they get them, I don't really care, but it'd be nice to get 3 points out of the next 2 games. Because let's face it, these are 2 challenging matches. But again, I don't see Reading don't need to fear anybody. I don't think, especially at home, we've got a good home record. We've got good options. He's rested a lot of the midfielders, sort of that he can bring back in on Tuesday night if he really wants to. And I just think that just play your game, Reading, and just see what happens. They're good. We know they're good, but I think we're as good as any on our day. So let's hope we can get some out of it. But as a pack of 2, if we get 6. We get 3 points out of it, great. Just make sure we get 3 points out of the 2 games, really.
Yeah, I agree with QPR on Friday as well. Also on Sky, also an 8 p.m. kickoff. That's at the Loftus Road Stadium. So, yeah, I think if you win either of these games, that's definitely a return. Or 2 draws. I mean, let's face it, 2 draws will be fine. The Norwich game in particular, I just don't want us to be under the cosh too much. I don't think we'll necessarily withstand 90 minutes of just pure pressure from them. And yeah, Reading have enough to cause problems. I think it's just about if we play as well as we did against Huddersfield and, all the other various games, Millwall and whatnot, then we'll have a chance. If we play as well as we did against Sunderland, then we will just get beat 4-0 again.
It's just
so that's the big thing.
I mean, I think that Sunderland game, Reading started dreadfully and it just carried on throughout the game. Just, I think the first 15, 20 minutes, just go for the game. Try and beat them because I don't think we're going to sit there the whole match and not concede a goal. I thought Lumley would have been very lucky on Saturday if he'd have kept a clean sheet because I thought everything he came for, he didn't exactly fill me with confidence, and that's basically how they scored the goal in the end. But I think they're scoring Norwich, so we're going to have to outscore them, I think, to get anything out of the game. So just go for the match. Just first half, just really go for it and just try and get an early lead and then you can sort of sit in and try and defend if you want. But I think the key is start quickly and don't let them get on top too early.
Absolutely. The QPR game on Friday, I'll give a bit of a word to that now because we'll be back after that game. But I mean, at home this season, they've not been particularly good. Only won 2 out of 5. Been beaten by Blackpool, haven't we all? Rotherham have come and taken a point. Stoke have taken a point. So there's no reason to think we can't go to QPR and cause them issues because they shouldn't have that step up in quality over us like Norwich will have.
Yeah, definitely. Again, if you're going to get points, I think that would be more likely. But you're away from home, and as we've seen for Reading, it's sort of a bit hit and miss away from home at the moment. But yeah, I thought Reading had another gear against Huddersfield. I thought really they went through the motions, especially in the second half. So there's plenty there, I think, for Reading to go and win at least one of these matches.
Definitely. Well, let's round off the show then with our predictions. How are we at the moment? Myself, Sim, Handbags and Ben all picked up a point on the Huddersfield game, all for saying that we would win. So that means at the moment that Handbags is in the lead with 8 points. Ben and myself on 5. We've got Sim and Adam on 4. Ollie's on 2. And Westy, you've predicted 1-1 so many times this season, and Reading still haven't drawn a game. So may not surprise you to hear that you're only on a single point.
If I continue to say 1-1, there'd be no draw. So are we either going to win or we're going to lose. So that is to get Reading promoted. That's what I'm going to have to do. Finish bottom of the division.
Self-sacrifice.
Yeah, self-sacrifice. I thought it's got to be 1-1 eventually. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change my tactic and it end up being 1-1. You can guarantee that.
What are you going to say then for this one?
But for Norwich, I don't want them to, but I think Norwich will beat us, and I think they'll beat us 2-1.
2-1 defeat. I am going to go for 2-0 to Norwich. Because, yeah, I mean, it's not to be too doom and gloom or anything at this stage. I think we're all kind of mature enough to think that Reading aren't going to go and just kind of absolutely bash them on the head with the guarantee. If we do, then brilliant, but I'm not going to predict it. Let's put it that way. So, yeah, I'll say a 2-0. I'll be more optimistic for QPR when that prediction comes around, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that if Reading were to win on Tuesday night, I think expectations levels might go a bit through the roof as well. So, I mean, they do, but I think just to ground us a little bit, we need to sort of, if we grind out a result, I think we'd be second, we'd be second, won't we, if we beat them? I think expectation levels might get a bit too much for everyone. The dizzy heights of second in the league after 11, 12 games.
Yeah, don't be surprised if we do get beat to have Paul Ince come out and say, I'm not bothered about losing this game, because he's done that a few times. After the Sunderland game as well, he came out and said he wasn't particularly disappointed to lose because people were getting a bit above our station. So
I think also, I said I ain't going to go for 1-1 for QPR game. I think I'm going to go for 1-1 for the QPR game.
Well, I'll put you down for that, but feel free to come back with after we get beat 3-0 or we win 3-0, like something against Norwich, to come back. But yeah, I think for the Norwich game, it's not quite in free hit territory because Reading are having a good season. We do obviously want to finish in the playoffs and such. We aren't expecting that, but we can't treat this game as a sort of game where, if we lose 4-0, it happens, because we've had that too many times this season already. If we lose 2-1 and it's a good game, then I think we'll kind of shrug it off and be fine with it. So not quite a free hit, but still a good opportunity to just take the pressure off ourselves and then go into that QPR game on Friday and actually maybe treat that as the bigger game, as a game against a team that we are genuinely fighting at the moment, that we're above as well. We might not be above them come that game because who have they got in the midweek? Sheffield United away. Okay, we'll still be above them come the time we play them on Friday. So yeah, it's a good week of football. It's on TV. Obviously, get yourself down to the stadiums as well. Home at Norwich, away to QPR. It should be a really good, intriguing, interesting week of Reading football, which I think we'll all be very happy to take as we approach on Monday. We might be sick of it on Saturday. We'll find out. But yeah, that draws to close this episode. Then, thanks very much, Westy, for popping on.
No, it's been great. I love it. Thank you.
And we will be back after the QPR game then. I haven't quite worked out exactly what day, but that being a Friday night, hopefully around about Sunday, we'll be recording for that show. As always, get your thoughts into the Twitter and the Facebook and the like for us to discuss after that game. And let's hope we're talking about Reading in the top 2 of the Championship after 2 big old games under the lights in front of the TV cameras. Come on, you arse.
You smile, funny how the crowd's always